Good lunch, I'm sure, but we'll get you something that will wake you up. We have an amazing panel here. We're going to talk about what it takes to build a business in India that's different from what you typically hear about from the Silicon Valley, right? And we have on the panel 3 people who have some amazing backgrounds in this area. First, you have PKR, Prashanta Keroy, Chief Editor, Cyber Media. He's looked at the Indian tech business from the inside, from the outside, from the left side, from the right side, right? So he'll drive the conversation. With him, we have Tarkan Maner, CEO of Wise Technology, Silicon Valley, but sold all over the world. And you heard him this morning. And we have Sridhar Vembu, CEO of Zoho Corp, one of the best known brands coming out of this country. Right. All yours.
Thanks. Kishore, I hope I'm audible. Yeah. Okay, great. So we'll try to make this. You heard Tarkan in the morning. I think we have a great complement of people from the sort of the software apps side of the cloud and the hardware and client side of the cloud. Lots of innovation on both sides. That's all what's piecing together this whole picture of the cloud. We'll try to keep this interactive, personal. We won't go too much into the business aspects of selling products and so on, though you know everything is fuzzy. We were just having a discussion with I was just speaking to a colleague a little while ago, wondering about how many of you are product companies and services being delivered as products or productized services, or all the divisions are going fuzzy. So Tarkan and Sridhar, let me start with a little bit of your personal stories. Let's start with you, Tarkan. You're from Turkey. You studied in Istanbul, and how did you land up in the US and then in technology?
So my background is in industrial engineering. I designed cars actually. Spent some time in Germany and did some in Mercedes and a few other companies focusing on cars and systems around cars, and it was not fun for me. So I changed my career by moving to US, get an MBA degree to get into business. I just want to be always in business. So ended up in the US, and right after school in a small school in Texas, I got into software business, and from one company to another, took couple of companies public, and ended up with IBM and Computer Associates afterwards, and then now with Wise as an investor and at the same time as the CEO of Wise.
So did you have a lot of people from Turkey at that time kind of going into the US and then studying there, getting into technology?
Some, yeah. Just like, you have a lot of Indian folks are coming from India. There was also a big move from Turkey to US at the time. It was a big deal because where innovation was taking place, and obviously universities in the US were pretty strong, and still some of them are very strong. So there was a big push.
Sridhar, tell us about your story. Now, you've been, this company that you founded, this is like 15 years old, you were saying, and you've been doing products right from the beginning. So that was pretty early days for products, wasn't it?
Yes. So when we started, there was hardly any product company here, but from the beginning we knew this is what we wanted to be doing. And it wasn't my brother Kumar, who was here, actually, Kumar, where are you? He was the one who came back to India at the time in 96, I think 95 November he came back. Because we worked together in Qualcomm. We were both engineers in Qualcomm in San Diego. And we were both talking about what should we be doing next. I mean, we know this is not where we are going to be forever. We realized it very early on. Not because we loved Qualcomm, but we felt this is not where we were meant to be in life. That's what we were talking about all the time. We'll go shopping together and we'll say, we have to start a company in India. And one day, suddenly, abruptly, he said, enough talking, I'm going back. He resigned his job, he came back the next day. My parents were shocked, actually, that he shows up without a job and he's sitting at home. He announces he's sitting at home and he's going to write code. So that's actually literally how it got started. And then I moved up, I resigned my job and moved up to Silicon Valley, which is about a 600-kilometer drive. I moved up and I sat at home for about 3 months, trying to figure out what to do. So that is how we started, really. There was no real business plan. There was no idea. Neither of us had an idea what we would do. We just knew we would want to start a company. That was the idea. So that was not fundable, right? No VC would touch that business plan. So that was real story.
So both of you sort of moved in to the US and started up there. You know, in your case, you
he didn't start in the US. He came back.
He came back, right? And you didn't you know, do a startup. You worked in various companies, and now you're an investor. But I was just wondering, you know, something some of the speakers said. I think Vivek Paul mentioned it in passing that most entrepreneurs have a strong US connection. You know, we were speaking earlier today. You know, you said that, you know, that there's a natural affinity, the market, and all that. Tarkan, you were much closer to Europe, so, you know, wasn't there elsewhere in Europe where there was also maybe technology potential, education potential, or was it, you know, the US was the kind of big deal?
It was, but when you look at, we talked about this a little bit in the morning session, but US and especially California and especially Silicon Valley provided is an environment, obviously with schools, a lot of smart people, young people, with a lot of great ideas, but most importantly, the second big dimension was high risk, high reward, banking system mentality, which we call VCs, who now private equity, there are different forms for these things. For these people to come in and basically finance even the craziest idea, which you don't get in Europe and elsewhere. People are much more risk averse. I mean, if we have a great idea in this room and go to ICICI Bank and get some funding, there is going to be some heavy interest rate on that thing, right? In the US, with the creativity of the VC system, even though it might be a bad system, not for every company, right? For instance, in Zoho's case, you have your idea with cloud, with new technologies, and with some of the smart innovation processes, and also you have a lot of people in Chennai. So with a low-cost idea, you can come up with a lot of great innovation, but some of the technology in the valley, think about the chip systems and hardware and so on, you need the capital. So it was difficult to get that capital in the 70s and 80s and 90s elsewhere. So Silicon Valley provided that, and it still does. And the third thing is, I mentioned this this morning, I think it's very important, and people sometimes don't think about this, but the lifestyle. The lifestyle is very important. The roads, the bridges, the entertainment, the school system that you can build a family, send your kids to school and so on. I cannot stress how important that is for the Indian context. So you don't make some of the mistakes of other countries who made the mistake. But for the innovation's sake, you don't take care of the environment and human lifestyle. So that's very important. So with Silicon Valley, which provides that kind of a good lifestyle, good school system, relatively speaking, so it attracts a lot of people to live there. So all those three components coming together: good school systems, great students, attracting a lot of students from all over the place. Look, 50% of people I talk to, they have either a child or friend or brother or some kind of background they had in Silicon Valley because of that. Because of schools, again, the banking system, how they attract you, and on the top of that, the lifestyle. So all those three things attracted us, obviously, into US, and specifically to Silicon Valley. By the way, not everywhere in US either, right? You're not going to go and build the next big high-tech company in Mississippi, right? You're going to go end up to Silicon Valley because of those three things coming together.
So I guess, you know, some of those issues, by and large, they still exist. Like you mentioned, I don't think ICICI will come and fund you cheaply for a startup. I don't know, has anybody got lots of money from ICICI Bank here?
Might.
It would be significantly expensive, but there are, of course, funding sources. Sridhar, how do you see this? I mean, clearly, the convergence of these factors, including infrastructure and all, is there at very few places. And in fact, infrastructure is just not there. Bangalore probably gives you one, you know, maybe the environment and weather and all of that, and talent supply to some extent. You did mention when we were chatting earlier about the lack of depth of product talent, though. So how do you see the ecosystem now? I mean, it has clearly evolved somewhat with a lot of VCs and, you know, angel and seed funds and a fair bit of activity. But you still see major gaps between Silicon Valley and here?
As I said, well, no one has done this before here, right? That's the biggest. I mean, if you see the benefit of Silicon Valley, Facebook maybe started by a person who's 18-year-old. But the moment it takes off, the moment it gets 1 million users, 2 million users, They would hire a data center architect. They would hire a marketing person. They would hire, and the marketing person might come from Yahoo. The data center person might come from eBay, right? So you have kind of a tailor-made, ready-made talent available that you can hire out of these companies. But here a company takes off. Where are you going to get the data center person? There's not that much talent. I mean, there's a lot less than people who have not built it before. So that is one of the challenges that you inherently face in. It's not just in India, right? You would face this in Japan. You would face this in China, anywhere. The same challenge. So that is something that you have to take into account. Which, the way I would say that you take into account is it takes longer to get to a certain milestone. Because the reason for the hyper growth companies achieve is there is, you can think of Silicon Valley as a kind of a factory, company factory, where the moment something takes off, there's a lot of things just come and pile onto it. The VCs pour money into it, talent pours into it, then that's how it accelerates.
So you can kind of scale much faster.
Twitter is an example, right? The moment it took off, then all the talent and everything pours into it, money pours into it. But it's not just money. I mean, you can pour 200 million into a company in Bangalore or Chennai, wherever, but where are you going to get the talent? So that's the challenge.
So how much of that has changed? Now, for instance, there are a lot of Indians who have worked in the US and elsewhere. Many of them are coming back.
Yeah.
Some of these areas like data center architecture, there's a lot of data center expertise which is kind of available. The money is available, but maybe not to the same degree of ease.
Yeah.
There are different aspects of the
More than money, the skills are important. And having done something like that before or having seen that before is important. Because actually there is really nothing to this and there's a lot to it both at the same time. If you have seen this done before, it looks trivial. If you haven't seen it done before, it looks really too difficult, impossible. So just seeing it, right? Just seeing that, everybody makes mistakes. You will, the first thing that you realize is you're not alone. Meaning, if you screw up a certain way, you're guaranteed you'll find somebody else in Silicon Valley who screwed up the same way before and still succeeded. Every possible mistake that you think I alone would make, somebody else would have made it and still survived. So that experience is what is valuable, actually, knowing that or talking to those people. So that's the thing that we are building up slowly. It will take time. See, if we think that somehow Bangalore or Chennai is going to become Silicon Valley in 5 years, it's not. But 10, 15, 20 years, it will, because the foundation is being laid. First, all the software jobs, all the tech jobs here. And think of all the experience that's being built. And then some of that experience is what gets assembled into new companies all the time. So I do believe it will happen. But it's the same takeoff process in Korea or Japan or any of these countries. First, a foundation was laid, and then the next and next. I mean, a great company that I follow is HTC. This company is now doing extremely well in smartphones. I mean, they are obscene amount of money. They are printing money right now. If you go look at 700 billion a quarter, last quarter. And yet, 10 years ago, this company was basically a contract manufacturer of laptops. High-tech computer, that's the name of the company. It's, kind of boring name. But now they have sexy HTC. But it's a foundation. They went from that to now what they are, a smartphone company. So that's the same thing that we have to do in India. There's no shortcut. We are not going to just produce a Facebook in like 2 years. I mean, unlikely to happen. But this foundation is what I think will pay off.
So, this lack of ready-made talent in certain areas, especially product expertise. The fact is, however, that a lot of the development work is happening, and both of you are doing development work here. So I'm wondering how you sort of adapt to that. Clearly, some of the people you're hiring do not have the diversity of experience that they would working in Silicon Valley, etc. Many of them may be fresh out of, in fact, we'll come to your interesting experiment with fresh people out of school in a bit. So Tarkan, how do you see it? I mean, you've been working with a development center here. Okay, so do you have to adapt your processes and your innovation in some way to be able to tap this expertise, which is somewhat different from what the diversity that you would have in Silicon Valley, or does it not really matter?
In our case, it really didn't matter, in our case. But I definitely agree with Sridhar, the things that he mentioned. On the top of that, in our own experience, this is our experience. We were not in India in development and in IP innovation 6 years ago. Your job is PKR every morning to come to work from 8 to 5, and your job to type A in your keyboard. A, that's your job. When you do B, you just get slapped around. Sometimes you get promoted, you can type B sometimes, between 3 and 5 p.m. So there is not much, everything is structured. And by the way, I'm not, blaming them, because that's a structure. When you grow, sometimes that's a structure you need to have, unfortunately. So the beauty of a startup, a beauty of a company, even if it's big, managed like a startup, at Wise, we still feel like we are a $1 million startup. We are a crazy company, and our development teams constantly change the game. They change constantly and learn new things. And we send them to schools for continuing education. So we try to cross-pollinate, so one developer, one coder learns multiple things. So they expand their horizons. Sometimes you move coders into architecture jobs. They do architects, and then sometimes they go back to coding again. So this keeps the momentum. This keeps the excitement. So with that excitement, with more energy, more passion, you innovate even faster. Do we do this 100% perfect? Absolutely not. We suck at it too. It's time to time. But overall, with that enrichment of the job, people learn a lot about other cultures also as they visit other countries. And also, we promote people by changing their location. People move from India to US, from US to Beijing, Beijing to India, India to Beijing kind of thing. So they learn a new culture, learn new things from the culture, and from also other engineers. So it creates more innovation, more velocity in our innovation, in our case. So this way also we train engineers. So in certain areas, for instance, you don't have certain talent. Let me give you an example. I find phenomenal talent in Russia in mobile development. It's very difficult to find mobile development application developers right now in Silicon Valley. It's hardly you can find one because they're all sucked into startups. They all have attitudes. Dealing with them is like dealing with a supermodel, right? They think they're the hottest thing in the world. It's difficult to find. But I find amazing mobile developers in Poland, in Russia, in Scandinavian countries. Nokia is obviously going through some rough times. A lot of ex-Nokia engineers are around looking for opportunities, and they have amazing tech background. In India, we were having a hard time with mobile app developers as well. But we're doing very well with firmware development here. In Beijing, we do a lot of great designers on boards and chip systems, but you cannot find great software developers. So you need to go where the resource is. So we cross-pollinate and find the people and relocate them all the time. Have you guys seen Star Wars, the movie Star Wars? You remember the bar scene? That's what Wise is. Star Wars bar scene, all these different look and feels, and it's like United Nations. And everybody's focusing on some area, and we change the jobs all the time. So you told me after this morning's keynote presentation, you want to join Wise. So we're going to let you type only A and C in the keyboard.
Or W.
Oh no, W.
W is good.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have your Beijing center kind of looks at the hardware side of design and development more.
Mostly firmware and so in our company, unlike Zoho, which is a great application vendor and doing great stuff, and I always see Zoho's big billboard on 101. I'm not going. I want to meet the CEO one day. I love those billboards. And look at this, we just next to each other. I really love this story. So I'm rooting for you, man. I love this story.
Thank you.
So when I go back to Wise, I know we have the device, we have the firmware on the device, then we have the discrete management, security, and virtualization software. So on the top of that, which we announced at lunchtime at your press conference, as you saw, now we're launching new infrastructure management as a service platform and a content management service as a platform. So those two are all compilation of different software products coming together. So we have hardware design mostly in Beijing. We do a lot of architecture work and all software development in Bangalore, and most of the architecture and mobile app platform in the US. But in the US Development Center, you're going to see people from Russia, Poland, India, China, Germany, Turkey, Middle East. You see a lot of different engineers from different skill sets. But I'll tell you, it's very difficult to find good talent everywhere. Everywhere. This is the same story in India, same story in Silicon Valley. Because a lot of people think development is just coding, just letters and binary characters. You have to have really hard, the right heart and passion to what you're doing. If you don't have the passion and attention to detail, you're not going to come up with good stuff. So to find those right people takes time. And once we find them, we groom them. They go through a rigorous training and so on within our company. That's why we relocate them all the time. That's very hugely important, just like Sridhar mentioned.
Yeah, on that billboard, I have a joke. I personally came up with all the messages. And
I like him,
I
man.
thought,
Yeah.
well, you have to tweet that because our VP of marketing, this guy thinks my billboard ads suck.
Yeah.
He thinks the only reason they're there is because I'm the CEO and I'm overriding him all the
There's
time.
some truth to that.
Jeez. So,
I love it.
It helps to be the CEO and you're.
but he thinks I should do something more scientific than just write the billboard copy myself. But,
I love it. But I'll tell you, the best CMOs are the CEOs. CEO has to be working very closely with CMO. I totally agree.
So Sridhar, how do you deal with the talent search here? You know, we were talking about this earlier. You know, you said TCS sucks up 50,000 people in 1 year, leaving
yeah, I mean,
for
even
startups.
now it's true, right? If you go to any college, right, any brand name college or any college at all, you'll see that 1,000 offers from TCS, maybe another 1,000 from Infosys. That's common now, right? Anywhere. That's what any new company will find. I mean, even we find it. I mean, Zoho is reasonably somewhat known now, I mean, but not in the colleges presumably, because the college kids don't seem to be surfing the web all that much. But even we find the same problem. When you go to a, the Gindi Engineering College, you're not going to, everybody asks already. So that's the challenge we have always faced. It was not a new challenge, but so we initially itself from, this was Kumar's idea, by the way. I didn't come up with it. It's because actually I was the good student. Kumar was the bad student in our family, so he always
The guy
had
cannot even defend himself. You need to sit down here, man. Defend yourself.
We'll give him a mic after this.
right.
Would be nice.
No, it's true story. I'm not making it up. He was always proud of it, that he wasn't very studious. He was proud of it too. It's not like he was, he was apologetic or something. So he always wanted to hire people more like himself who are not. He would say, I'll give more weightage to the guy who has played sports, how well he played sports, team sports. Those were his criteria for hiring. Right, Kumar?
He's a cool guy.
Yeah. I mean, we were different, right? I might look for, initially at least, I would look for grades. He would look for sports. So we had a diversity like that. And what we actually found was the college they went to, the marks, whether they graduated or not, I mean, even how many arrears, those things didn't make much difference. We have some great people who still officially haven't finished. They still have sitting on a couple of arrears, right? So we started to, offbeat this kind of hiring policy. This was Kumar's innovation in the beginning, and that worked out. Then, so my job then, once I looked at it, I said, then why are we looking for that college at all? When we find that the marks they got doesn't matter. The fact that they played 4 years good cricket matters, but not so much the marks. Then why do we need the college? Why don't we go to high school directly? So it's not that, when you think about it, it's not that radical. In our industry, I like to joke, every billionaire is a college dropout. It's almost a requirement to be a dropout to be a billionaire, actually. Right? I mean, seriously, think about it. So it starts with Bill Gates and all the way to Zuckerberg now. I mean, so every time somebody made $1 billion, they didn't finish college. So then why do we think that, when we want to hire, we have to have, no arrears, top college, 85%, whatever. That's a stupid way to hire. So I thought, maybe we just don't need college at all. That's how we started our Zoho University program. This year, there are actually about 55 students in that who just came fresh out of high school. We have 6 faculty. So it's a very, we have about 9 months to 1 year of extremely rigorous program. They are very hands-on. They work maybe 3 hours in the classroom, maybe about 7, 8 hours in the lab. They're programming, they're learning mathematics,
And you make them drop out after the first month?
No,
You dropped out now.
well, they join the work. They're getting paid anyway first, and they're joining the
Great
workforce
idea.
about
Yeah.
9 to 12 months into it, and it's been very successful for us. So of course we don't go to the middle class schools where the parents will push the kids to go to college. Right? We go to the rural schools or schools where the children are not going to college anyway. So we are not distracting somebody from their other goals. But it has worked out really well, and we have now more than 15% of our engineers come from that thing. So we are going to expand that further.
So basically, for
So in a way, I'm actually at war with colleges in a way. I mean, it's really, we want the kids before they go to college. So
yeah, I mean, like you observed, I think college has a huge opportunity cost. In those 4 years, you could be creating Facebook.
yeah,
Why
exactly.
would you go through college? So basically, for the Zoho University program, you pick kids straight out of school or maybe dropouts from college, and typically from rural schools and so on.
Even urban schools, but government schools.
Government schools,
typically.
And you take them through a year of
It's
sort
about
of education.
50% urban and 50% rural. We did a statistic recently about 50-50.
Sridhar, do you need to get certification from the government to have that, or?
Well, no, we actually, look, we employ them. So our customers buy our product. They're not buying the degrees.
Right.
We don't.
You give them some kind of, you give them some kind of certification, obviously.
Well, they have finished our program, but that doesn't mean anything. We don't seek, intentionally, we don't want to seek accreditation. In fact, in India, there's an issue, right? So university now, in US, we can call it anything we want, but in India, the university is a very regulated name, so we might change it to Zoho Academy or something. We don't really care. So.
Great idea. This is a fantastic program. You were talking about this during the earlier session. It was fantastic. Right. Great idea.
That's brilliant. So, and you find these people are, they can adapt to the technology?
No, of course. In fact, every time I'm impressed by this, I come in when the students join, typically about April, May, when the school is finished. I ask them, I always meet the students. I ask them, how many of you have touched a computer before? About 50% would not have touched a personal computer, right? I mean, that's the ratio even now. That's the state of our schools, right? And yet, 3 months later, I come to India every 3 months. 3 months later, I meet the same one, and they would show me a JavaScript thing they have written, or Python. And, I'd feel a little bit ashamed because my JavaScript is rusty. I mean, I'd still like to read code. They would be ahead of me. Every time I feel a little bit depressed, man. 3 months, these kids are going to beat me now. And I don't want them to beat me, right? So,
great story.
And they are that rapid progress they make. So it's really, that's the root of why so many of the young people in this industry, is created by young people, is because it doesn't take very long to master the skills to get in the door. After that, the learning is actually on the job, really. I mean, all the other skills, how to create products, how to find customers, how to, all of that is on the job. So
do you find these kids have a strong...
Vinod Khosla mentioned this. I mean, Indian School of Business, he founded. He said, but don't go there. I mean, if you want to start a company, start. Don't go do an MBA. He said that. So I agree with it.
So, and do you find these people that you take and train, they have a stronger affinity to the company?
Of course, they're very passionate, they're very motivated, they're very determined. So that's our real, killer advantage over competition, that we have these types of passionate people in the company. So.
How do you choose your, sorry, you're not asking the right questions, man.
No, absolutely. All yours.
So how do you choose your faculty?
This is a very interesting.
I love this guy, man. I'm serious. Do you have an opening in your company? Come on now. My JavaScript sucks, so maybe I can learn all this. So, Sridhar, how do you choose your...
So we, again, offbeat. This is a really interesting story. One of our faculty we hired this way. There was a blog, one of the students, I usually scan for blogs students write. And then I send them an email if I find something interesting. Hey, would you like to join our company? So, because if somebody writes well, technical subjects while in school, I want to hire them. So about 6-7 years ago, I found a student who had a nice blog on Lisp programming. In India, Lisp programming language is practically unknown. This is a student who's doing this. It's never taught in college, nothing, right? Lisp is an obscure language by any college in India. So I found his blog and I wrote to him saying, would you like to join? But he already wanted to do higher studies. But then I asked him, is there a teacher of yours I can recruit? We are looking for faculty. He recommended, we have this statistics teacher who's really good. We should talk to her. So I gave her a call and we recruited her. She's still with us. So
that's an amazing referral program.
Yeah, because, there's no better referral than your student, right? For a teacher.
Okay.
That's why you recruited.
The Minister of Education from Delhi is in the back, right? He's listening to this. Taking notes. What is his social security number?
Well, so there's this guy looking through blogs. He gets to our students, then he gets a teacher.
Yeah.
Smart.
That's how we hired, yeah.
I'm scared of this guy, man.
That's brilliant. So, okay, so there you have it. If you're having problems with talent because, TCS and Infosys are taking 100,000 people in a year,
our company, 99% of the people we recruit came fresh out of college. To this day, it's true. It's not like we don't hire experienced people. It's just that most of the people we hire, we come fresh either out of high school or out of college, but fresh. So I mean, we have about 90 managers in the company now, out of the 1,400. I think almost every single one came fresh out of college to our company. That's how they got promoted. So that's the statistic now.
That's really amazing. So let me take a quick break here. If there are any questions or comments at this point. Yeah, go ahead. First hand up there. Yeah.
You were talking of recruitment in particular.
Okay, there is a mic, so maybe there's recording. So just briefly tell us who you are and get to the question.
Yeah, this is a question for Sridhar, but you could actually answer. I mean, both of you advice would be useful. You're talking about recruitment in particular being a big challenge, and in startups we face that a lot. You had a question initially saying that you can't find a data center specialist in India at this point. A lot of the time when we look into resumes in different job sites, we look at, we see that somebody's hiring a C++ programmer. So the way the recruitment is tailored is more towards languages as opposed to specializations. What do you typically do to hire somebody in that?
You know, this is kind of secret in Silicon Valley, right? Not big secret. No startup would look at those recruitment sites or even resumes. Most hiring is made through these tribal networks. I call them tribal networks. Really, that is, you know, I know these people, I worked with them before, and I pull them to a new startup. 90% of the jobs are filled on that basis. It's a very low tech. You would think it's low tech. That's how it is. You don't scan for keywords, any of that, because there's no way really through a resume and a couple of hours of interview or 5 hours of interview to know what a person would be on the job. It's impossible. I tell you, that's why I don't really believe in interviews at all, because you can't really tell. I mean, you might be able to say, okay, this person knows Java well, but you don't know how passionate they are going to be on the job, or how motivated, how committed, how they are to work with. All of that only you know on the job. Unfortunately, in other words, the best way to find whether somebody is suitable for a job is to first hire them and see how they work out for 3 months. But you don't get to do that with everybody, right? So the way startups fill in Silicon Valley is through these tribal networks, basically. I worked every single job. For example, my wife has worked in 3 startups. Every single job, she never wrote a resume. She has never written a resume in life. Every single time it's through the people she has worked with. Somebody moves on to a company and their previous company would have died. Lots of, no, that's the other thing, right? In Silicon Valley, a company, as somebody put it, whether a company is alive or dead is undecidable. There are lots of companies that are in the in-between state where both alive and dead. So you have lots of those where you recycle the talent. That's how my wife has found jobs every single time through, you know, someone she worked with says, hey, I'm in this company, you come and join. That's how you find the job. So that is why I would say, and so when I say data center architect, it's not because you scan the site for data center architect. It's because, oh, I have this friend in eBay I worked with who's a data center architect. That's how you pull him into a startup. So
you're saying the competencies may be there beyond the language specialization, which is coming up in the resume. So it may actually be there.
I mean, as I said, most startups do not hire on resumes at all in Silicon Valley. It's exceptionally rare. It would be based on these networks of people. As you bring people, then the network expands, right? Each person you brought in has their own network, and then you hire from that. So it's extremely tribal. That's the right word here. That's how you recruit.
So, Tarkan, I don't know if this fits your morning mantra. You were talking of verticalization. You hire a nurse, you hire a government employee, and not a C++ specialist.
So, I mean, look, every company is a little bit different, but let me give you, let me give you a little bit additional dimensions about the verticalization. But before verticalization, obviously, categorization is important. Like in my company, for instance, we have mobile cloud group, we have a security group, we have virtualization group with different set of skills and backgrounds required. Sometimes it works with younger engineers just coming out of school, a little bit of training and so on, but sometimes you need a certain level of experience. Like if you're building a cloud platform, you need multi-tenancy and you need certain security capabilities, you know, from the device to firmware to application itself to the data center itself. Sometimes you need that extra experience and so on because time to market is important. So for certain skills, obviously you need additional talent. You need sometimes that additional talent coming from competition. How do you get other people? In the Valley, definitely there's a shortage of engineering in the Valley as well, in Silicon Valley as well. But since the concept and topic of this panel is entrepreneurship, let me tie this to entrepreneurship a little bit. A lot of younger kids coming out of college, in Silicon Valley at least, they don't want to work for a company. Even Zoho for them might be too big a company. They want to start their own thing. Sometimes they want to be the next Sridhar, right? With their brother, who was not into tech people but sports. I like you. To make long story short, at the end of the day, sometimes you are in a position, you cannot find anybody, you need to attract competition, competitive people from another competition. Time to market is important. Move fast, right? Frictionless business, you need to get very fast. And then secondly, in a specific area, even competition might not have enough people. So how do you find those people? And sometimes you need to get very attractive, because if someone want to be their own entrepreneurship, they want to create their own value, you have to change your financial ecosystem. Sometimes financial ecosystem is important as well, you know, the money you pay and so on. In my company, for instance, what we changed when I came on board, there was a common stock given for employees. A common stock is good, but it's not great. We have to change it. So now we only deal with preferred stock. So my investors, myself, have the same preference on the investment, on-wise, as the engineer we just hired. Because they have the same preference in an exit, in an IPO or whatever that might be. We're a privately held company. So a lot of engineers coming in and saying, hey, I can start my own thing. Now I'm being given an independence and freedom to build my own innovation. Plus I have preferred stock. I can create my first deal here and take Wise IPO, and I'm part of this big IPO, and I can use that for my next company. Because no engineer, if it's a good engineer, gonna come on board and gonna work for the same company for 50 years. To be honest with you, if a person is working for the same company for 5, 10, 15 years, there's something wrong with you. You have to innovate all the time. I tell you, if you're in Wise for 5, 6, 7 years, you have a problem. You need to keep moving all the time. Or the company keeps moving all the time and keeps you excited. So I love all the stuff that Sridhar talked about, you know, the context, the Zoho University, great ideas. Sometimes those things help you to a certain level. Beyond that level, you need some, different type of an engineer. You need to do some kind of incentivization that can happen through enrichment of the job, as well as financial incentives that lets the engineer come on board and feel like they're an entrepreneur. But that's still a challenge in the long term. So job enrichment is very important. And I'll tell you very openly, CEOs have to be very creative to keep their team excited, included, and innovating all the time. I'll tell you, if I'm an engineer working for a company and I don't hear from the CEO and management all day long, I'm not going to stay if I'm a good engineer. If I'm a loser engineer, I will stay in the job because I'm collecting, salary. But if I'm going to keep good people, I'm going to work for a good company, I want to be connected to the management team. I want to understand where the company is going. I want to be part of the vision. Those things are very, very important. I know they sound cliche, hugely important. So what means for me as a CEO of a company, I spend a lot of time with my engineering team, with my customer. We put the engineers in front of the customers so they are becoming their own CEOs on their own territory, their own project. That's hugely important. Not every time is perfect, but you need to involve every single employee. Obviously, engineering is a very important piece of that, with the entire. If you're transparent, if you're confident about the knowledge being transferred to everyone is going to involve themselves more and more. And like Sridhar said, they're going to bring their own tribal ecosystem into the company. So we hire a lot of people through friends of friends. They love them, just like in Zoho. They love your company, they bring their friends. Same story with me.
Even now, a lot of our hiring is through that, the friends network of employees. That's how we hire a lot of people. So.
Very true.
There was another question.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a simple question, Sridhar. I mean, you just told us that you maintain, you get trainers from network or something. So how you maintain your trainers? Because as per my experience, when trainer is trained, it's very difficult to retain them. How you maintain that pool of trainers?
Well, they love the job. They're very passionate. I mean, they look at this model, this Zoho University. So we haven't actually lost a faculty member. Actually, we don't call them trainers because it's a university. We call it university, so they're faculty. So they love the job, and it's challenging. We're constantly also evolving the. See, here there's another interesting thing, right? We come up with our own curriculum. It's a creative job. It's not just regurgitate something that's out there. It's not somebody sets a curriculum. We are coming up with our own. So our faculty is challenged. They have to. A good example recently, mathematics, right? We wanted to see how we can teach mathematics differently. What real math skills you need on the job? We decided spreadsheets, models. So not calculus. I mean, you know, in this digital world, you need spreadsheet models. How are you going to model your, for example, your SEO spending on Google Ad? Or how are you going to model your mortgage calculation? All those kinds of things. And so we instituted a new program based on spreadsheets. It's much better. It's going much better than when we were teaching more dry, you know, statistics or probability kind of things. In the same way, we experiment in English. We are now, how do we teach them better? Because our goal is that they learn it, not just that they take some exam and pass it. That's not our goal. It's a non-goal for us. In fact, we don't conduct a test in the end. We have a very subjective assessment. The faculty, through the course of the life cycle of the student, the entire thing, they have to come up with a subjective assessment of how they are doing. It's not based on one test and some marks in the test. It's not objective at all. I hate this word objective. There's nothing very objective about human beings, right? We are all unique. There's no way to compare two students and say, the student is 92%, the other student is 93%. It's just useless. We don't do that. So those are the things that keep them motivated. On the other hand, if you had a very process-driven job, you come and repeat something year after year, they're going to get bored and leave. So.
Is there another question? Okay, so let's just take up, leading up from the first question, we've been talking about the differences between the Silicon Valley and Indian ecosystem. Now, the fact is many of these are startups who are actually operating primarily in India and some exclusively in India. So, what things do you do differently? So one is, of course, the gap, the issue with the talent. And you found one answer to it. I don't know if that is replicable because, you probably...
It may not be, I mean, right.
Yeah, you've reached a certain scale. In fact, it would be interesting to hear from you what is the financial balance sheet, so to speak, for that exercise, because presumably it has to pay off.
Interestingly, I do not ever call our Zoho University as charity. We pay the students from day one, but they join our workforce in about the second year. Their productivity shoots up. By about third year, they are actually producing really well. And we find that over the course of those 4 years they would have spent in college, they would have paid us back our investment in the first couple of years because of the extra productivity. So in 4 years, they paid us back in a way. So we don't call it charity. It actually, the company comes out ahead in a way. So. And we have great employees too. And they never spent a dime, they got paid from day one. I mean, day one. As soon as they leave school, we pay them.
So Tarkan, what would be the benefits of companies, being here versus Silicon Valley? I mean, for example, is proximity to the market where they may be targeting their products a big deal? On one hand, it's a fairly global era, and you're working 24/7 across Beijing, Bangalore, and the US. But is it important if you're trying to innovate for certain gaps in a specific kind of market like India to be kind of present primarily there, or does that not matter?
It matters a little bit. It doesn't matter that much. Customization, obviously customization is important, right? When we deal with customers, let me also explain anything very important. We have three types of development. We divide it in 3 levels. So we call it level 1, level 2, level 3, just like in support systems, right? When you have a customer service support system, you're at level 1, level 2, level 3 support. We also deliver our R&D in a similar way. We have corporate R&D, and we have field-facing corporate R&D, and then we have field R&D. In each sales office, there's an R&D technologist actually can do some source code development and optimization and customization for the customer. It's just like a systems integrator doing customization and serviceability actions for the customer. We develop that into our own R&D processes from end to end. So from that perspective, to keep those field-based R&D folks close to the customer is hugely important. But it's not the only thing. It matters, but it doesn't matter as much because some of these things are not that different. Especially as we move into cloud-based services, the differentiation is getting less and less and less. There is still some, don't get me wrong, in the UI, in how the infrastructure works and so on. But one key thing that we're looking is when we came to India, there were 2 reasons. One, obviously, it was cheaper for us to develop. Let's be blunt about it, for 10 years ago. But now it's also being close to the market, being close to customers. Since 1999, we've been doing some of the work, but in 2005, we just increased our presence here. Now we're seeing bigger and bigger sales because local customer feels like the product is being developed here. I'm going to get customer service directly from the engineer, close to the engineer. So that makes a big difference. One other piece that I mentioned earlier that you brought it up earlier in this conversation, verticalization, hugely important. So from a hiring perspective, we don't only get horizontal people with horizontal skills, but as we believe the biggest innovation also for startups in India is going to be much more vertical specific, especially on the application side and application development. We are now looking for more engineers coming from the customers on the specific verticals. I have a set of healthcare people in my company. I have a set of education people in my company. We are bringing now people actually from India to US to help us design certain software products, helping the US developers and Beijing developers from India in certain industries like telco and for banking. Especially on the security space and application development space. So we are cross-pollinating from vertical to geographic to horizontal from that perspective as well. So from an entrepreneurship perspective, if you're starting your new company, I think there is a huge opportunity in verticalization for new ideas in verticalizing your applications, both at the application GUI layer as well as the infrastructure layer. So that's what we're doing within our company today.
And that's where the domain is very important. And
very important.
To be in a particular.
Very important, yeah.
Sridhar, how do you plug in the some of the gaps that we spoke about between the two ecosystems? Now, one, we spoke about talent. The other thing you were mentioning is the other elements of the ecosystem that come together when someone is ready to scale. Now, some of the examples you were mentioning were often on the, like maybe a Yahoo person coming into, let's say, a Facebook
or Twitter. Yeah.
So there's a lot of maybe higher level marketing expertise and so on, which kind of comes into the system. So yeah. Is there a way out for startups here?
You know, I would say we first overthink the problem in India. We think it's a big deal. It's not that big a deal. Most of the marketing people that I've hired, I've talked to in Silicon Valley, don't have any kind of marketing degree or MBA, nothing. Most are self-made. I mean, you'll see this extensively in Silicon Valley. There's hardly that many people with a Harvard Business School or any of that. In fact, those are not the ones who you would want to hire in a startup, typically.
Anyway, you write the billboards, right?
Yeah. So I wrote the billboards, for example, and lots of people thought they were great, except my VP of marketing, who has a Stanford Business School degree. So that's, I have to get back at him for that. So anyway, but that's where I'm saying that in startups, here we think we overvalue all of these paper credentials. We think there's a big deal. So first we have to quit thinking that it's a big deal. I mean, think about Mark Zuckerberg. He was 18-year-old when he started. I'm sure that people in this room have more knowledge now than he would have had at 18. He just had lots of raw confidence. That's what we lack here. I mean, that's really what most Indians. So at 25, you definitely have more knowledge. I mean, software or any of this, you have seen more. But what we lack compared to the 18-year-old who are starting the companies is that raw confidence. Even a little bit of arrogance. Screw you, I'm going to do it, right? So that's what we need more of here. So it's marketing, sales, any of this. You jump in, you try it. This is what Vinod mentioned yesterday too, that there's no real script to this. You jump in and you learn to swim. And that's how it is. So how do you learn marketing in a startup? You try it. I mean, lots of things will fail, okay? Lots of times, whatever, we have launched so many products, so many have failed. But as he put it, you only are measured by your successes, not by your failures. And that's true in every step we take in our personal, in our careers, in any of this. So that's why I would say, don't sweat it too hard. Try it. I mean, if you find a person with some flair, maybe he's a developer, a QA, convert that person into marketing, maybe it will work. That's how we have done it. Lots of times we have hired somebody to write, our documentation. That person becomes a great marketing person, great social media person. Like we hired actually in fact, this is a true story. There's a person, Meera Sapra, who's our social media expert who sits in Mumbai. And the way we hired her is very interesting. She was a HR, I mean, I'm sure Meera is probably hearing this somewhere now. She was in Delhi doing HR in a company. I assume very, very boring job, right? And we had a cartoon site called Tundu. That's one of the failures, by the way. You probably didn't hear about it because we didn't succeed very well. Except that Meera was very addicted to it. She was always posting cartoons in this site. And the product manager called her one day and said, hey, do you want to switch a job? I mean, you are spending all your time doing tools. Maybe we have a job for you. Surely you're not doing your job, whatever the job is, right? HR job. So she came on board. She's awesome. She's our Twitter, Facebook blogger now. I mean, she has a great career. She works out of Mumbai now. That's how we hired her. And she actually said when she switched her job, her parents were flabbergasted. Like, you're going from a job to some company in Chennai, nobody has met you, just because you are actually hanging out in their site and all the time wasting time. Seriously, that's how we hired Meera Sapra. You can go to our blog, you'll see Meera, and you'll see her on Twitter all the time. That's how we hired Meera, actually. So that's, that's marketing talent. That's how you make talent, Not from, business school, not from IIM. We have 0 IIM people in our company, and I'm proud of it, so.
Okay, so any entrepreneurial challenges that you'd like to throw at them that you're experiencing here? Yeah, okay, gentleman at the back with the mic first, and then we'll come to you.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I totally appreciate the initiative of Zoho University, but on the other side, when you hire the freshers, how about the experience on the practical side, when you're architecting different things, on a higher level. As a startup, we can't have a gestation period of 4 years, right? You train them for 1 year, it's 4 years of gestation, you're talking to get a quality product out of it, Instead of that, we hire an experienced person. So it's a saying that 3 good people, instead of that 1 great person is good, so in that context, what do you say?
Well, you consider Twitter as an example, right? They put out something on Ruby on Rails, just a prototype. And then it took off. They had serious problems. It would not scale at all. So they had to rewrite the whole thing to be scalable. And this happens, right? So they just did it. And a couple of years ago, the story all the time was how often Twitter would go down. It would go down all the time, the fail whale. So, but they screwed up. They just got back and they fixed it. And, that's why, again, I say don't sweat that too hard. I mean, in Zoho, we didn't know how to do cloud stuff, 5 years ago. Our CRM, Zoho CRM product, which is our most successful today, we actually had a horrible time. We were very slow. Our own sales guys would refuse to use it because it was damn slow. I mean, and then we just rewrote it. So we learned how to fix it. No?
That's what I'm saying. You said that you already launched a product and you experimented with it, you're fine with it. You may be good with your financials and all, but for a startup, it will be sucking. We'll be out of business, right?
Well,
yeah.
This, even if you hire experienced people, this kind of thing would happen. Stuff goes wrong all the time.
All right.
Experienced people will find more innovative ways to screw up too. So it's that's the reality.
And
right?
you'll be paying them more for the...
Yeah, exactly. So
you may as well pay less to less
right,
experienced.
No, I'm serious. I'm not. It's a joke.
But do you buy that? There's a saying. It says 3 good people is better than 1 good person. So do you agree or do you not?
I totally agree with this. I'm just saying that when you hire experienced versus if your variable is experience versus inexperience, that alone doesn't tell you whether the person is good or bad. In other words, I'm asking you not to make this equation experience equals good. That need not be true. I have hired experienced people who produce much less than inexperienced people. So I've learned all of these lessons. So.
Okay, we are actually out of time. We'll just quickly take this one question. Go ahead. Very.
See, you mentioned that you started this company without any plans, without any business plan, nothing. Just being there in your house for 3 months and started. And if I'm correct, you started with Zoho CRM.
Oh no, that story was long ago.
Okay,
Zoho
so
CRM
why you opted for CRM? Are you benchmarked with Salesforce.com or something like that? Can you just share that?
Most of the time we started products because I suddenly wake up and I think, man, this is something we should be doing. Or somebody had that idea. Like Cartoon Site we started because somebody showed me a prototype in the company that they built and we launched it. It had some traffic. It still has some nice traffic, but it didn't make that much money. We said, okay, we'll move on to something else. That's how we start most things. We are not actually, it's not a very scientific process. I don't believe in those scientific processes, right? Hunches. In CRM case specifically, I tell you, by then our company was already about 10 years and old, and we were one of the earliest customers of Salesforce. So we went online in about 2000 when Salesforce launched. And by about 2004, we had about, 50, 60 people on Salesforce. We were paying a lot of money. And then I looked at it and I analyzed it. I said, man, these guys are really, really ripping us off. I could do this code much better than they could do. I could charge a lot less. I could make money. So I'm going to compete with them. That's how we started, actually. Seriously, that is how we started. We decided they're ripping us off, and I can do this better. So we started it.
So, Tarkan, let me leave the last question to you. You've been speaking much of the day about this mafia that you've been part of, and you go to people for protection money after that. So,
I would strongly suggest, based on my own experience, number one, just like Sridhar said, I think confidence is very important to build something new. Because if you don't have the confidence, you're going to fear things, and you need to have guts, right? Number two, I believe it's very important to focus on the areas where there's pain. Just like you wake up and say, hey, Mark is ripping me off, I'm going to build this mine. There's a pain, you deliver the solution. It's hugely important. And number three, I think it's very important. I think data-driven decision-making is important. Gut feel is important, but there have to be some kind of data-drivenness. Even
this is what I have with my marketing guy.
Exactly. even with Sridhar, even when he says, I have a gut for something, there's still some kind of pain point, right? There's some kind of calculation in his mind. When Salesforce.com is charging, you're making the calculation, all that money they're making. So there's some data in that decision making. So to make long story short, going back to everything we discussed, definitely follow the mega trends, but mega trends are too vague. What is the specific area that you can create your niche? There is always to innovate around things. As I told you, one last anecdote for you, I know your time is up. I'm just now investing in a company. They do a dating site for kids, average age is 19, and they're doing a dating site. Match.com, Yahoo Personals, all those sites, it helps for people to find each other, to get married and so on. And these guys looked at this and they tried it and they said, it sucked. They cannot find the right person. They have all these dates. They don't have money. And they go, our college, allowance from our parents are not enough for us to survive and find dates. We're going to build a dating site which is connected to Groupon. So these guys build a dating site now, and I'm their first investor, okay? Just to give an example how they've done it So I put my own interests and look for persons in a contextual intelligence database way and finds another person or group of people liking the same thing. Let's say we like biking. All of a sudden there's a bubble comes up and says, Mike's Biking delivers you 50% off for your biking experience. So date becomes an event. And through the event, now you're having some kind of a discount as a user, and from the Groupon, you get some kind of a cut. So all of a sudden, you create a dating experience, and it becomes a life experience. Think about that overall system. It touches social media, it touches cloud, it touches contextual intelligence, it touches all the big data stuff that we've been talking about. So all of a sudden, mega trends, but there's a pain and turn it into something new. And in this new world of cloud, Sridhar, that with Zoho.
So on that wonderful note, we'll bring this to an end. Yeah. Thank you so much, all of you. We'd like to, on behalf of organizing team, hand out mementos to Sridhar, Tarkan, and yeah.
I'm supposed to be a volunteer now, Sharad. You're giving me something. Thanks. Thank you.
Blue shirt volunteer, please.
Can't give stuff to volunteer. Come on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll have a quick.
We'll take a picture.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So as Tarkan said, we must, the gut tells me this went off very well, but we got to be data driven. So please, feedback, very essential. Later, just an hour from now, we'll be giving out 3 Akash, 3 Lavas, and 3 Kindles for people.